Good morning, Sixers. Today we will be looking at the concept of molecular gastronomy, which is part of Module 2. Please follow along on your PDF notes that are uploaded onto the WhatsApp group. Molecular gastronomy seems like a complicated concept, but it has actually been around for quite some time. It is basically a form of expression in cooking, and many fine dining restaurants still use it. So, what exactly is molecular gastronomy? Molecular gastronomy is a branch of food science that focuses on the physical and chemical processes that take place during cooking and uses these processes to create flavorful, functional, and artistic results. So it is actually a form of food science, but in a more creative and artistic form. So, if molecular gastronomy is an integrated part of food science, what are the key differences? So let's take a look at food science first. Food science is a larger discipline that includes molecular gastronomy. It deals with how the composition pertains to production, nutrition, deterioration, and food safety on the industrial and mass production level. Molecular gastronomy focuses on the physical, biological, and chemical makeup of ingredients. Molecular gastronomy is intended for culinary understanding and experimentation of dishes in restaurants and homes. So, in actual fact, with molecular gastronomy, we do not need a food science degree to practice it. Anyone who has the passion and know how of food production can implement the concepts of molecular gastronomy. Let me give you a better picture of what molecular gastronomy is through the different techniques used. You would find these techniques on page 93. First up is emulsification. These are used to create foams or airs that dissolve in your mouth. It's used by mixing soy lecithin with a flavored liquid and using an emulsion or stick blender to create the foam. The soy lecithin actually stabilizes the foam so that it can actually last a bit longer. Next up is spherification. These create soft, squishy spheres that resemble pearls, caviar, and spheres. This is done by using calcium chloride and alginate with a flavored liquid. The calcium chloride is actually added to the flavored liquid, and the alginate is added to some water in a water bath. So when you use a syringe and drop little droplets of the liquid into the bath that has the alginate in, it starts to gel almost immediately. And it creates a gelling consistency with an outer membrane and a liquid center. So it gives you the idea of when you put it in your mouth, it bursts with all the liquid. Meat gluing is another technique. It creates smooth combinations of meat. You can create patterns like spirals or checkerboard patterns through combining meats. This is done with transglutaminase enzyme that is used as a binding agent, also known as a meat glue. Here you could see that there's two different types of fish, tuna and yellowtail, that is added together to give a checkerboard appearance. Next up is jellification. These create noodles and unique shapes for appetizers, entrees, and desserts. It is done by using agar-agar or carrageenan and moss, plus a flavored liquid that creates a gel. In the pictures below, you can see noodles that are translucent, as well as leathers and jellies. Sous vide is another technique used to prepare various foods from steak to fruit. This is done by vacuum sealing foods in a plastic bag and cooked in a temperature controlled water bath. Below you can see a sous vide water bath controller that has a piece of fish in a vacuum sealed bag that is lowered into the bath. This is slow cooking but on a temperature control scale. You would need to seal the bag pretty tightly using a vacuum sealing machine to remove all the air so that the actual package does not explode in the water. This creates the most tender items. Next up is deconstruction. This contains multiple components that, when eaten together, resemble a classic dish. If you think of maybe a lemon pie is generally made out of a base, a filling, which is lemon, and a topping of meringue. Here, a deconstructed dessert would possibly be taking the base and making a crumble instead. So you have the crunchy element through the crumble of the base. And then you have maybe a curd, like lemon curd, to create that smooth consistency of the lemon curd in the actual baked pie. And then the actual meringue can be baked into crispy garnishes. So eaten together, it will all taste like a lemon meringue pie, but it doesn't look like the classic version. This technique involves breaking down the elements of the dish and presenting it differently. Here you can see desserts that are all just deconstructed but are actually form part of the classic desserts. Another popular technique is converting liquids into powders. These create textural interest in dishes. This is done by using high-fat liquids and adding maltodextrin in the form of a powder, and it is a starch substance made from tapioca. Below you can see the high-fat substance is generally placed in the food processor, and while you're processing, you're adding the powdered maltodextrin until you get the desired texture or consistency that you would like. And next to that, you can see a dessert using that same powder. In the actual processor is melted white chocolate, and by adding the maltodextrin, we are making it a crunchy dessert element. Another technique is incorporating edible paper or foam. These create interesting dimensions to dishes, and it is made from potato starch and soybeans, and the foam is actually created from these two ingredients. Here you can see that it is very widely used to make transparent tacos shells as well as ravioli. Once liquid touches it, it pretty much disappears. So that's quite an interesting technique. Smoking is possibly one of the more popular techniques that is widely known, and it creates a brief, attractive presentation of smoke when serving. It gives aroma and flavor. This could be done with food as well as drinks and beverages as well as cocktails. Here, a smoke gun is utilized to create that smoke, and the flavor is based on the actual wood that is used in the smoking gun. Below, you can see how much of an impact it really has. The smoke is actually trapped under cloches or in jars or glasses to trap that aroma and the smell of the actual flavored smoke. And when you release it at the table, the smoke obviously dissipates and fills the nostrils of the diner. The last technique is flash freezing. These create intricate decorations, garnishes, and creates textural interest. It is done by using food-grade liquid nitrogen. Here you can see that raspberries have been steeped in liquid nitrogen as well as cheese. And if you kind of use a spoon, it will actually shatter into pieces. So that gives quite a nice cold temperature to the desserts as well as a nice texture to the dessert or dish that it is used in. So now that we have taken a look at molecular gastronomy techniques, it's great for us to take a look at the popular molecular gastronomy recipes. You will find this on page 93 in your textbook. First up is a foam curry. This is done with agar-agar that you put into a curried flavored liquid and placed into a siphon gun, which is on your left. Generally, it's also known as a cream whipping gun, and it is charged with gas so that it creates the aeration and that stability of the foam. Up next is smoked cocktails or beers. Here you fill a smoking gun, which you see on your right, with the flavored wood chips. You can see them pictured below on your right-hand side in the little containers. And you have to serve these drinks almost immediately. So as soon as it is smoked and you remove the cloche or the covering, the smoke will start to dissipate and give the aroma and actually impart a flavor to the actual cocktail or drink. You can also use herbs and different spices to smoke these drinks. Next up is rocket spaghetti, also known as arugula. These make long strands of rocket with the help of agar-agar, and you generally can serve these noodles hot or cold. You will do this by using a syringe and using the calcium chloride and alginate to create these long strands of jellified noodles. You can actually serve these hot or cold. Next is the transparent ravioli, and we use round, thin, edible film discs that consist of potato starch and soy lecithin to create transparent ravioli. You can fill with any ingredients and has a low water content like fish or meat or sweet fillings like dried fruits and honey. And finally, we have the Nutella powder or dust. And this is prepared by using the actual high fat liquid, which is Nutella, placing it into a food processor, and then gradually adding the maltodextrin powder. As the processor runs, it will start to form a powder consistency. You can use this on desserts and different dishes. So I hope you learned a little bit about molecular gastronomy. It is a very interesting concept. The next time I see you, we will tackle part two, where we will be looking at the different uses of technology in the preparation of molecular gastronomy.